Okay, next project up on the bench, going back to the Space Marine project, the Hounds chapter, and going to be revisiting probably the most important miniature in the set, namely the Master of the Hounds. Now, back many moons ago, I think this miniature dates back to before my son was born, and he's almost 26. That was the original miniature I made for the Master of the Hounds. That, as many of you may recognize, is the old metal Abaddon the Despoiler, missing the Chaos iconography in many cases, especially on the sword and on his back. My lack of skill at the time shows, but that's where this all began. And then more recently, I took a newer Space Marine Captain figure, gave him the sword off the Eldar Avatar of Cain, and a few custom bits. But I've decided that this figure, while good, is not Primaris. And nearly all the chapter masters in the 40k lore have crossed the Primaris Rubicon. So, to that end, I'm going to start again. Here we have the brand new Space Marine Captain in Gravis Armour. He is Primaris. And we're going to make a couple of customizations. I have a wolf-style backpack here that I'm going to take the heads off of, replacing the cooling vanes on the stock backpack. And rather than the power sword or chain sword that he comes with here, we're going to be using a power sword miniature, or a power sword from a different miniature. This one, the details not really shared as. Some of the details are showing is from Heroes Infinite's Dance with the Vampire line. This is from one of their big bads, actually, from one of the big bads of that line. I cut it off the rest of the arm using Mesh Mixer and printed it separately. Now, no Master of the Hounds would be complete without his pack of Hellhounds to run with. These, rather than using Fenrisian Wolves from Games Workshop's line, these are from Heroes Infinite. These are the wolves included in the Land of the Frost set. Printed off on my 3D printer. They, to me, look much more imposing than the Fenrisian wolves do. Yep. Their bases are what they came with, so I'll just be using those. That's the base that the captain himself came with. And as I can sense I'm starting to ramble, I'm going to get started. Okay, as you can see, I was able to grind out most of the detail there, yet keep the ribbon. So I'm happy about that. I've also removed the heads from the wolf backpack. Once the major mods are done, and the next major mod is removing the wrist from the chainsword arm, so I can put the new sword on. Alright, as you can see, I've got the Hounds themselves glued down to their bases, and the customization work on the backpack and arm are done. This big old ammo drum here is the biggest reason why I had to use the heads from the new pack, but keep the old pack, as well as on the back here where it's supposed to mate to the rest of the figure. Whoop. Sword arm, I'm pleased to say, is in place. I need to clean it up a little, but not as much as I half expected to. We're getting there. Okay, at this stage, we have completed construction of the new Master of the Hounds. I still need to put some sand or coffee or something on the base. But, all in all, I'm very happy with how the base construction turned out. Everything matches up. Once everything's primered, that sword will look like it belongs there. I went ahead and went with the bald head. Even with it under the hood like that, going to be a pain to paint, I decided that's the way I wanted to go. Next stop for this guy, as well as his hounds, is paint. Okay, after a couple of hours work, I've got the Fenrisian wolves assembled and on their bases. Surprisingly, they don't look bad at all next to the previous wolves I did from the Infinite Heroes set. And one thing I did do to deal with some of the seamage is I took some Vallejo texture paint, move out here so we can actually see it, and put it along the seams to act as a filler. On the tops, it wasn't too bad. Down across the bottom, the belly was actually bare, so the seam showed really badly. With the texture paint, I may go in and add a little more to help fill out a more fur look underneath there. But all in all, I'm very happy with how these guys turned out. So the Master of the Hounds now has plenty of hounds to choose from. And here we are in the spray booth. The first coat of primer on these folks, as well as some, for lack of a better term, Chaos Sisters that I found online. Got an initial coat here of Vallejo Black Primer. This will be followed with a white to give me a zenithal in a bit. As you can see, the white highlight has been shot from above using the Vallejo White Primer. And once these have had a chance to sit, it's going to be time to go get some paint on them. Okay, what I'm looking at here is an old picture of one of the original Hellhounds miniatures. This was the metal Space Wolf Captain. He had the cloak with the backpack with the cloak. And, of course, like all the original Hellhounds miniatures, I no longer have him. Reason I'm looking at him today is Games Workshop recently did a new made-to-order set. What I have here are a pair of the classic Space Wolf Captains. I've 3D printed some wolf-themed backpacks that, despite their size, will work okay with the smaller miniatures. I've also 3D printed some Luna Wolves logos that I'll be using, Luna Wolves crests that I'll be using. Now in this case, the Luna Wolves crest looks an awful lot like the old Space, like my old Hellhounds logo, so that's coming in handy. To make these guys stand out a little better compared to their larger cousins, I've put some, taking a cue from Casey over at eBay Miniatures Rescue and Jay over at Eons of Battle, I've taken some cork and put it on top of the 32mm base they came with and trimmed down the feet, the slot that would have been in the old Slotta base to give me something to anchor them to. And I'll be adding them going with the Master of the Hounds, who is still not painted, but in this case it's a good thing because some more of those crests are going to go on his shoulders. Keep watching. We'll get there eventually. Okay. Picking up for where I left off in the last update. I've now primered the new Master of the Hounds as well as the 2 Space Wolf Captains in Games Workshop Citadel Wraithbone. That way if I mess up, I can fix with the straight Wraithbone. Doing that because I plan on using a lot of the Army Painter Speed Paints and Citadel Contrast Paints and trying something new with these. Well, I'm going to get started painting. We'll see how things go. Alright, after a long time getting interrupted intermittently between various projects, I can happily say the redone Master of the Hounds and the Pack of Hounds and the 2 classic Space Wolf Captains are now done. What we've got, of course, the center of all that is the Space Marine Captain, Primaris Captain, in Gravis Armour. Redone as the Master of the Hounds. I've taken an emblem I found actually for the old Luna Wolves Legion, but also happened to fit what I've done for the Hellhounds, and printed up one for each shoulder. That one's done in gold, whereas the one on the opposite shoulder is actually done in chapter colors, or in chapter colors in this case. Same thing was done for the right shoulders of both of the classic Space Wolf Captain figures. They were painted with a majority of contrast and speed paints. The wolves were done mostly in they were done in black, given a zenithal primer, and then painted over in Gravelord Gray from the new Army Painter Speed Paints. The eyes and mouths were then picked out appropriately in red, with basing done from various sources. The Marines were painted with a combination, again, of contrasts and speed paints. The metallic parts were given an undercoat of silver, followed by a coat of either Gnome Oil, Graveyard Gray, or Gravelord Gray, and there's a yellow in the Army Painter Speed sets that was used to create the gold effect. The reds were done with the blood red from the Speed Paint set, as was the underside of the Master of the Hounds cloak. The gray parts were actually done using Space Wolves gray contrast paint. The black parts of the armor were done in, well, Black Templar contrast. His sword, the name of which is escaping me at the moment, was actually taken from a figure by Raging Heroes / Infinite Heroes, or Heroes Infinite rather, and then glued to the hand of the Captain Gravis Armour to give a more unique sword. The front 3 wolves are also from Heroes Infinite, and then the back 5 wolves are the Fenrisian Wolf Pack. They have all been painted in the same way to give them a more uniform appearance. I can sense I'm already starting to babble, so at this point what I'm going to do is add some stills to the end of this, and thank you all for watching.